The text message glowed on Sophia Morgan's phone at 2:37 a.m. "Baby, I'm so lonely." Her heart stopped. It was from James, her executive assistant, a single father struggling to make ends meet while raising his daughter alone. The same James whose efficiency kept her company running smoothly. The same James she'd been secretly falling for, despite the professional boundaries between them. What Sophia didn't know was that this accidental text, meant for his daughter's babysitter to check if she was available tomorrow, would change both their lives forever. If you're enjoying this story of unexpected love across social divides, please hit that like button and subscribe for more emotional journeys that will touch your heart. Sophia Morgan stared at her phone, reading the message for the 5th time. Her fingers hovered over the screen, unsure how to respond. As the CEO of Morgan Enterprises, a tech empire valued at over $4 billion, she was accustomed to making split-second decisions that affected thousands of employees. Yet this simple text message from her executive assistant left her completely paralyzed. "Baby, I'm so lonely." James Parker had been her right hand for nearly 2 years. Efficient, dedicated, and unfailingly professional. A single father who never complained, even when she knew he was struggling. The kind of employee who arrived early and stayed late, who remembered how she liked her coffee, who anticipated her needs before she voiced them. The kind of man she had no business thinking about the way she sometimes did. Sophia set her phone down on the marble countertop of her penthouse kitchen. Outside, the city lights of Manhattan twinkled against the night sky. She'd been reviewing quarterly reports when the message came through. Work that kept her up at all hours, work that had built her empire but left little room for anything else. Her phone buzzed again. "Oh my God. Ms. Morgan, I am so sorry. That message was meant for my daughter's babysitter to check her availability. Please disregard. I apologize profusely for the unprofessional text." Sophia felt a strange mixture of relief and disappointment. Of course it wasn't meant for her. What had she been thinking? She typed back, "No problem, James. Everything okay?" 3 dots appeared, disappeared, then appeared again. "Yes, thank you for asking. Just trying to find someone to watch Emma tomorrow. My regular sitter cancelled last minute." Sophia glanced at her calendar for tomorrow. Board meeting at 9, lunch with investors at noon, conference call at 3. And James was supposed to be there for all of it, as he always was. "Bring her to the office," Sophia typed before she could second-guess herself. "We have that empty conference room on the 40th floor. She can set up there for the day." The response came quickly, "I couldn't possibly impose like that." "It's not an imposition. Consider it done." James Parker stared at his phone in disbelief, his heart still racing from the mortification of accidentally texting his boss, his billionaire CEO boss, a message meant for his daughter's babysitter. And now she was offering to let him bring Emma to the office? He looked across his modest 2-bedroom apartment at his sleeping 6-year-old daughter. Emma was curled up on the couch, having fallen asleep during their Friday movie night. Her dark curls framed her face, so much like her mother's it sometimes hurt to look at her. Caroline had left them when Emma was just 2, claiming she wasn't cut out for motherhood, for marriage, for the responsibility of it all. The divorce had been quick but devastating. 4 years later, James had built a new life for them, but it was a constant juggling act. Especially with a job as demanding as being executive assistant to Sophia Morgan. Sophia, with her sharp mind and sharper suits. Sophia, who worked 18-hour days and expected everyone around her to keep up. Sophia, who despite her reputation as a ruthless businesswoman, had moments of unexpected kindness that left him breathless. Like now. "Thank you," he typed back. "Emma and I both appreciate it." He carried his daughter to her bedroom, tucking her into bed beneath her favorite star-patterned comforter. Tomorrow would be interesting, to say the least. The Morgan Enterprises headquarters occupied 50 floors of gleaming steel and glass in Midtown Manhattan. James arrived early, as always, but this time with Emma in tow. She wore her best dress, navy blue with white polka dots, and clutched her backpack tightly. "Is your boss nice, Daddy?" she asked as they rode the elevator to the executive floor. James considered the question. "Ms. Morgan is complicated. She's very smart and very busy." "Is she pretty?" He felt his cheeks warm. "Yes, she's very professional looking." Emma gave him a look that was far too knowing for a 6-year-old. "That's not what I asked." The elevator doors opened before he could respond, revealing the hushed, elegant reception area of the executive floor. And there, waiting by her office door, was Sophia Morgan herself. James had always thought his boss was attractive in an intimidating, untouchable way. Today, though, in a simple charcoal dress that somehow made her look both powerful and approachable, with her dark hair falling in soft waves instead of her usual severe updo, she was breathtaking. "Good morning, James," she said, then crouched down to Emma's level. "And you must be Emma. I've heard so much about you." Emma, normally shy around strangers, stepped forward with her hand extended. "It's a pleasure to meet you, Ms. Morgan. Thank you for letting me come to work with my daddy today." Sophia's smile transformed her face completely. "The pleasure is all mine. And please, call me Sophia." James watched the interaction with a strange tightness in his chest. In 2 years, he'd rarely seen Sophia smile like that, open, genuine, reaching all the way to her eyes. "I've set up the conference room for you," Sophia continued, standing and addressing Emma. "There's a TV for your tablet, snacks in the mini fridge, and I thought maybe you might like these." She handed Emma a package wrapped in simple silver paper. Emma looked to James for permission before carefully unwrapping it. Inside was a set of professional art supplies, colored pencils, sketching pads, watercolors, the kind James could never afford. "Daddy said you like to draw," Sophia explained. "I used to draw when I was your age too." "Thank you," Emma whispered, clearly overwhelmed. "These are the most beautiful art supplies I've ever seen." "You're very welcome. Now, let me show you to your headquarters for the day." As Sophia led them down the hallway, James felt something shift between them, something he couldn't quite name but that made his heart beat a little faster. The board meeting was a disaster. The quarterly numbers were down, the new product launch was behind schedule, and the board members were out for blood. Sophia handled it all with her usual cool efficiency, but James could see the tension in her shoulders, the tightness around her eyes. When the last board member finally left, Sophia slumped in her chair. "That was brutal," James said, gathering the meeting materials. "That was business." Sophia straightened, mask back in place. "How's Emma doing?" "I checked on her during the break. She's happily drawing and watching videos on her tablet." Sophia nodded, then hesitated. "Would it be inappropriate if I asked to see what she's drawing?" "I meant what I said earlier, I used to love art. I'm sure she'd be thrilled to show you." They walked together to the conference room, where Emma was surrounded by papers covered in colorful drawings. When she saw them enter, she jumped up excitedly. "Daddy! Sophia! Look what I made!" She held up a drawing of 3 figures standing in front of what appeared to be the Morgan Enterprises building. One was clearly James, one was Emma, and the third was a tall woman with dark hair. "That's you," Emma said, pointing to the woman in the drawing. "And that's me and Daddy. We're all going to get ice cream after work." James felt his face flush. "Emma, Ms. Morgan is very busy." "Actually," Sophia interrupted, "ice cream sounds perfect after the day we've had. That is, if you both would like to join me." Emma bounced with excitement while James tried to process what was happening. Was his boss, the Sophia Morgan, asking to spend time with them outside of work? We'd love to, he heard himself say. The ice cream shop was a small, family-owned place a few blocks from the office. Not the kind of establishment where one would expect to find one of the richest women in America, but Sophia seemed completely at ease as she ordered a simple vanilla cone. Just vanilla? Emma asked, incredulous, as she contemplated the 30 flavors on display. Sophia laughed. Sometimes the simplest things are the best. I'm getting unicorn sparkle with extra sprinkles, Emma declared. A bold choice, Sophia nodded seriously. What about your dad? Daddy always gets chocolate. He says why mess with perfection? James shrugged, caught. She's not wrong. They sat at a small table by the window, Emma chattering away about her drawings, her school, her friends. James kept waiting for Sophia to check her phone, to make an excuse about needing to get back to work. But she seemed genuinely engaged, asking Emma questions and listening intently to the answers. What about your mommy? Emma asked suddenly. Does she like ice cream too? James nearly choked. Emma, that's not. It's okay, Sophia said gently. My mother passed away when I was about your age, Emma. But yes, she loved ice cream. Strawberry was her favorite. My mommy left, Emma said matter-of-factly. She didn't want to be a mommy anymore. The silence that followed was heavy. James wanted to disappear through the floor. Well, Sophia finally said, I think that means your mommy missed out on knowing an amazing little girl. And that's very sad for her. Emma considered this, then nodded. That's what Daddy says too. Sophia's eyes met James's over Emma's head, and something passed between them, understanding, perhaps. Or something deeper. The next few weeks brought subtle changes. Sophia began asking James about Emma regularly. She approved a flexible work arrangement that allowed him to be home more in the evenings. Once, she even sent a car to pick Emma up from school when James was stuck in a meeting that ran late. For his part, James found himself seeing new sides of his boss. The way she remembered details about Emma's life. The way her voice softened when she spoke about her own childhood. The way she sometimes looked at him when she thought he wasn't noticing. It was dangerous territory. She was still his boss. Still one of the most powerful women in the business world. Still living in a completely different reality than his modest life as a single dad. But then came the night of the Morgan Enterprises charity gala. As Sophia's executive assistant, James was required to attend, managing logistics and ensuring everything ran smoothly. He'd arranged for Emma to stay with a neighbor, dressed in his one good suit, and prepared for a long evening of work. What he hadn't prepared for was Sophia in a midnight blue gown that made her look like she'd stepped out of a dream, approaching him with 2 champagne flutes. You've been working all night, she said, handing him one. Take a break. Dance with me. MS. Morgan. Sophia, she corrected. We're eating ice cream with my daughter one day and back to MS Morgan the next. I think we're past that, don't you? James took the champagne, trying to ignore the flutter in his chest at her words. Sophia, then. I'm not sure it would be appropriate for us to dance. Why? Because I'm your boss? She took a sip of champagne, her eyes never leaving his. What if I told you I've been thinking about changing that? Changing what? Your position. I've been considering promoting you to Director of Operations. You've more than earned it, and it would mean you'd report to the COO, not directly to me. James stared at her, speechless. Director of Operations? It was a massive promotion, one that would solve so many of his financial worries, give him more time with Emma, and, he realized with a jolt, remove the professional barrier between him and Sophia. Why, he finally managed. Sophia set down her champagne. Because you're brilliant at your job. Because you deserve it. She paused. And because I can't stop thinking about you, and it's becoming a problem. The honesty in her voice, the vulnerability in her eyes, it undid him completely. Dance with me, she said again, softer this time. Just one dance. He took her hand and led her to the dance floor. One dance became two, then three. Conversation flowed easily between them, about work and life and dreams they'd set aside. When the gala finally ended, neither wanted the night to end. Come back to my place, Sophia said as they stood outside waiting for their cars. Just to talk. I want to tell you about the promotion properly, what it would entail. It was a transparent excuse, and they both knew it. I can't, James said reluctantly. Emma. Of course, Sophia nodded, disappointment clear in her eyes. Another time. His car arrived first. As he was about to get in, he turned back to her. What if? What if you came to our place instead? It's not much compared to what you're used to, but Emma will be asleep, and we could talk there. The smile that bloomed on Sophia's face was answer enough. James's apartment was indeed modest, a two-bedroom in Brooklyn, neat but clearly lived in, with Emma's artwork covering the refrigerator and a collection of well-worn children's books on the coffee table. It's perfect, Sophia said, and meant it. After checking that Emma was asleep, James made them tea, and they sat on his small couch, closer than they'd ever been before. Tell me the truth, James said quietly. Is this promotion real, or is it just an excuse? Both, Sophia admitted. You deserve the promotion regardless. Your work has been exceptional. But yes, I also want to remove the professional conflict. Because? Because I haven't felt this way about anyone in a very long time. Maybe ever. She set down her tea. I know it's complicated. I know there's Emma to consider, and the company, and a dozen other reasons why this might be a terrible idea. But I can't stop thinking about that text message. James groaned, covering his face. I still can't believe I sent that to you. Baby, I'm so lonely, Sophia quoted softly. You know what I thought when I first read it? For just a moment, before I realized it couldn't possibly be meant for me. I thought, me too. James lowered his hands, looking at her with new understanding. You're surrounded by people all day. And completely alone, she finished. Until recently. Until you and Emma somehow slipped past all my defenses. The confession hung in the air between them, honest and raw. James reached out, brushing a strand of hair from her face, his fingers lingering against her cheek. I'm scared, he admitted. Not just for me, but for Emma. She's already lost one woman in her life. If this doesn't work. I know. And I can't promise it will. But I can promise to try, with everything I have. Sophia leaned into his touch. I've built an empire, James. I've closed billion-dollar deals and faced down the toughest CEOs in the business world. But this, what I feel when I'm with you and Emma, this terrifies me more than any of that. And that's how I know it matters. James looked at her, really looked at her. Not as Sophia Morgan, billionaire CEO, but as simply Sophia, a woman who was taking the biggest risk of her life by opening her heart to him and his daughter. Emma asked me last week if you were my girlfriend, he said with a small smile. I told her no, that you were my boss. And do you know what she said? Sophia shook her head. She said, that's too bad, Daddy. I think she'd be a good girlfriend. She draws with me and she doesn't mind when I talk a lot and she looks at you the way princesses look at princes in my books. Tears welled in Sophia's eyes. Smart kid. The smartest, James agreed, then leaned forward and kissed her. Softly at first, then with growing certainty as she responded, her hands coming up to frame his face. When they finally broke apart, both breathless, James rested his forehead against hers. So what happens now? Now, Sophia said, we figure it out together. Day by day. 6 months later, James stood in his apartment. Their apartment now, since Sophia had surprised them by selling her penthouse and moving into their Brooklyn home, claiming it felt more like a real home than anywhere she'd ever lived. Emma was helping Sophia decorate for James's birthday, hanging streamers while giggling about their secret plan. The apartment was still modest. Sophia had insisted they keep it, saying she loved its warmth, though she'd quietly paid off the mortgage as a housewarming gift to herself. "Do you think Daddy will be surprised?" Emma asked, carefully placing candles on the homemade cake they'd baked together. "Absolutely," Sophia assured her, checking her watch. James would be home from his new position as Director of Operations any minute. The transition had been seamless. He was brilliant at the job, earning the respect of the entire executive team within weeks. Their relationship had faced its challenges. The office gossip had been relentless at first. Some board members questioned Sophia's judgment. Her friends wondered if she was having some sort of midlife crisis at 38. But none of that mattered when she came home to James and Emma each night, to family dinners and bedtime stories and weekend trips to the park. For the first time in her life, Sophia had found something more valuable than business success. The sound of keys in the door made them both freeze. "Places," Sophia whispered, and Emma giggled as they positioned themselves by the cake. James walked in, loosening his tie, then stopped short at the sight of them. "What's all this?" "Happy birthday," they shouted in unison. His face broke into a wide smile as Emma ran to hug him. "You remembered." "Of course we remembered," Sophia said, walking over to kiss him. "Emma and I have been planning for weeks." After cake and presents, when Emma had finally gone to bed, James and Sophia sat on the couch, his arm around her shoulders as she curled against him. "I have one more present for you," she said, reaching into her pocket. "I wasn't sure when the right time would be, but—" She handed him a small velvet box. James looked at her questioningly before opening it to reveal a simple platinum band. "Is this—" he began, his voice catching. "Not quite a proposal," Sophia said quickly. "More of a promise. I know we agreed to take things slowly, for Emma's sake. But I wanted you to know where I stand. Where I hope we're heading." James stared at the ring, then at her, his eyes shining. "I never thought I'd find this again. After Caroline left, I was so focused on Emma, on survival, that I closed that part of myself off." "I know," Sophia said softly. "I did the same, just with work instead of a child. We both built walls. But somehow we found each other anyway," he finished. He took the ring from the box and slipped it onto his finger. "It fits perfectly." "I may have measured your finger while you were sleeping," she admitted with a smile. James laughed, then grew serious. "You know, that text message was the best mistake I ever made." "Baby, I'm so lonely," Sophia quoted, leaning her head against his shoulder. "Except neither of us is lonely anymore, are we?" "Not even close," James agreed, pulling her closer. 3 months later, on a crisp autumn day, James stood in the middle of their living room, heart pounding. Emma was at school, and Sophia was due home any minute from a business trip to Tokyo. Everything was in place, the rose petals forming a path from the door to where he stood, the small table set with candles and champagne, and in his pocket, a diamond ring that had taken him months to save for, even with his new salary. He'd rehearsed his speech a dozen times, but when the door opened and Sophia appeared, looking tired but beautiful in her travel clothes, every prepared word fled his mind. "James," she said, taking in the scene before her. "What's all this?" He walked to her, took her hands in his, and spoke from his heart. 6 months ago, I accidentally sent you a text that said, 'Baby, I'm so lonely.' It was meant for Emma's babysitter, but somehow it found its way to you instead. And that mistake changed everything." He took a deep breath. I'm not lonely anymore, Sophia. You and Emma are my whole world. My family. My home. He dropped to one knee, pulling the ring from his pocket. I know you gave me a promise ring, and now I want to give you a promise of my own. Sophia Morgan, will you marry me? Will you be Emma's mother and my wife? Will you let us love you for the rest of our lives? Tears streamed down Sophia's face as she nodded, unable to speak. When James slipped the ring onto her finger, she finally found her voice. Yes, she whispered. Yes to all of it. Later that evening, when they picked Emma up from school together and told her the news, her reaction was everything they'd hoped for. Finally, she exclaimed, throwing her arms around both of them. Now we can be a real family forever. We already are, sweetheart, Sophia said, meeting James's eyes over Emma's head. We already are. 1 year later, in the garden of the small house they'd bought together in the suburbs, a compromise between James's modest apartment and Sophia's luxury penthouse, they exchanged vows surrounded by friends, family, and colleagues who had watched their unlikely love story unfold. Emma served as flower girl and ring bearer, proudly walking down the aisle in a dress she'd helped design, carrying the rings on a pillow she'd decorated herself. When it came time for their vows, James took Sophia's hands in his and smiled. I never meant to send you that text message, he began. But now I know it wasn't a mistake at all. It was the universe giving me a push toward the woman I was meant to love. The woman who would become not just my wife, but a mother to my daughter. The woman who taught me that second chances are sometimes even better than first ones. Sophia wiped away tears as she began her own vows. Before you and Emma, I had everything the world told me I should want: success, power, wealth. But I was empty inside. You showed me what really matters. You taught me that the greatest achievement isn't building a business empire, but building a life filled with love. She squeezed his hands. That accidental text message didn't just say, "Baby, I'm so lonely." To me, it was the universe saying, "Here is your chance at real happiness. Don't let it slip away." As they sealed their vows with a kiss, Emma cheered louder than anyone. And later, during the reception, when she fell asleep in Sophia's lap, exhausted from dancing and celebration, James looked at his new wife cradling his daughter and knew with absolute certainty that some mistakes were actually miracles in disguise. That night, after Emma was tucked into bed in their new home, James found Sophia standing on their back porch, looking up at the stars. Any regrets? He asked, wrapping his arms around her from behind. She leaned back against him, covering his hands with hers. Only that it took us so long to find each other. We have the rest of our lives to make up for lost time, he reminded her. Sophia turned in his arms to face him. You know, I still have that text message saved in my phone. I look at it sometimes, just to remind myself how something so small can change everything. Baby, I'm so lonely, James quoted with a smile. The accidental proposal that started it all. The best accident of my life, Sophia agreed, rising on her toes to kiss him under the starlit sky. If this story touched your heart, please hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more emotional journeys about love finding a way against all odds. Remember that sometimes our greatest mistakes lead us to our greatest blessings, and that family isn't always what we're born into, sometimes it's what we build together, one day at a time.